But
So what did she do? She was homemaker?
just a homemaker.
She had a lot of children, didn't she?
Yes, I think she had about maybe 8 or 10. I knew at one time I could count them up, and of course she lost some along the way. And Mama was third from the youngest. She had 2 sisters younger than she was. But
Do you remember your granddaddy, Albert?
Albert,
Do you remember
he
him?
was sick. Oh, I remember him, but he was sick so much. But my grandmother's father was still living. I remember him. He looked like Santa Claus. He had a white beard and a lot of white hair. He was from Ireland. And if you've ever looked at the people from Ireland, that's how they look, really. But he looked like Santa Claus. And I never will forget. I remember him better than anybody, I guess.
So he was actually born in Ireland?
He
or
was
just
born
had...
in Ireland, and the others came over. He came first, I guess, and the others came with him. But Mammy, I don't think ever lived in Ireland. It had to be Pappy's folks. That's what they called him, Pappy. And it was his folks that came in. I don't know who came with him because he was the oldest of all the folks in the family.
So did you ever just go stay with your mammy or just visited with your mom?
In mostly visiting with Mama. She, I never did go over there too much. And see, I did be over Birmingham, and I never did go that far away from home when I was growing up.
So your mom and her were close.
Very close.
Had a good relationship.
Yeah.
That's good.
Very close.
And her daddy, I guess, died kind of young then, if he was always sickly.
It was her husband. It was Mama's daddy.
That's what I mean, Gran's daddy.
Yeah.
So she would go back and forth to see her mom.
That's right, and I went with her then. And Martha came along in the later years.
Now, what about your daddy's mom and daddy? You remember them real good.
Oh, so well, yes.
You spent a lot more time with them, didn't you?
Yeah, they lived in Rome. And we went almost every Sunday when we lived out of town. We'd go to eat lunch. She was a good cook.
And what did you call her?
Grandmama. She wanted to be called Grandma.
And what about your granddaddy?
Granddaddy. Yeah.
And what did he do?
He was a Methodist minister, but he had to give it up when he, I guess, around 60 or something, because he had heart trouble, and so it got too much for him. But he was never one that you would really remember, but he was pretty good. But I remember him, and one time when he was up at up around Gainesville preaching, he had gone on and on and on, and I think I was about 3. And finally I was sitting on the front row, and I said, "Come on, Papa, let's go home." So that broke up church that day. But he was a dear person. He was very jolly, and all like ministers, they all know jokes and things, and he could keep you. And he loved to read. And my Uncle Paul took a lot of magazines, and I remember every time he came, he'd come with an armload of magazines. I think about me sometimes with the magazines, but he liked to read.
So what do you remember the most about your grandmama? That grandmama.
That grandmama, her playing the piano.
Oh, she played the piano. I didn't know that.
She played the piano. And we'd get a hymn book and sing. And I couldn't sing, and she couldn't sing, but we sang. Oh my. Yeah, and she was a good cook. She was a real good cook.
Now, you spent a lot more time with her.
Yes.
Didn't you stay with her some?
I stayed with her some, yes. Mostly weekends and summertime when school was out.
And she was a disciplinarian, wasn't she?
Oh, yes.
You'd
Yes.
walk a straight line.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But did you learn how to sew and stuff? Who taught you things like that?
Oh, Mama, I guess, told me that. because Grandmama, I can't remember sewing, but she must have, but I can't remember that part.
Mm-hmm.
But she loved flowers, and she worked out in her flowers a lot.
They probably had a big old garden too.
They
didn't
did. They had a garden, and back in those days, a lot of people had little farms they had inherited, and they didn't want to leave town because they had good jobs, so they would rent it, and that's what Grandpapa and Grandma did. They rented this farm.
Mm-hmm.
Yet she had some property in Rome that they could have lived in, but they liked it out in the country.
Mm-hmm. So, what was life like for you growing up? Like, how early back do you remember?
I guess that great granddaddy, Pappy, was my first memories, and being over there, because I know Mom and Daddy were there. I don't know whether they had moved from there or not. They met when Daddy was working over in Alabama. So they may not have come back to Georgia then. That's why I can remember that and them.
And you were born when?
November the 9th, 1927.
In where?
In, let's see.
Birmingham?
Yes, Birmingham. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Were you born at home also?
She was in the
Yes.
hospital. I thought you were in the hospital. No?
No, I was at home.
Were you? Okay.
Mhm,
I thought you were born in the hospital.
yeah.
Midwife or doctor back then?
I guess it was a midwife,
Mhm.
or I think that's right. I think it was a midwife. That's what people
Well, I
did
think when
back
I
then.
looked back on history, I think they had moved closer to like the Rome area, but when she got ready to have you, I think she went back home to her mama.
She probably did.
Which is what I think a lot of girls did back then. They wanted to go to their mama when it got time for them to deliver. And then they got to stay with her for a while, because usually you didn't do too much for a month or two after you had a baby. So I think she went back home. That's how Mama got born in Birmingham.
Probably so.
What did you enjoy doing as a young girl?
Read. I love. As soon as I found the library, I was in heaven.
Mama, tell the story about how when you were about 3 years old, you'd walk to church by yourself. Tell that story.
Well, we were living out. Daddy was working in Tubies in Rome, and Mama didn't go with me very much. She'd walk about halfway, and I would go the rest of the way. And 3 years old, yeah. And I'd go to Sunday school, and how I knew what to do, I don't know, but I did. And so one Sunday, I didn't come home. And so then, of course, Mama had to come looking for me. And I had stopped. They had a little pony that drove an ice cream cart through there, and the children took their money and ran out, and probably the Sunday school money, ran out and got their ice cream cones and sandwiches from that. And I followed that little cart all over. I didn't have any money, but I followed that little cart all over there. And finally, we got together. Mama,
Gracious
I didn't do that.
Did you ever
part.
get an ice cream?
No. I don't know what how I thought I was going to. They might drop one or something.
Oh, that reminds me of Jack. That's what Jack would do.
Just followed it around.
Yeah.
Oh, gracious.
Oh, tell the story about. Tell us about what it was like when you were like in middle school. What do you remember?
We were in Rockmart then, and there were two schools, one for children on that side of town and one for children on that side of town. And when I moved, I just kept going to that school because I thought, Mama probably thought, why not take somebody out of school in the middle of the year just because we moved. And so that was the type of school we had.
Did you have to walk or?
Yes. No, you didn't have any school buses or anyway. And Daddy rode a bicycle. He had the agency for the Atlanta Journal, and we didn't have a car, and he rode that bicycle everywhere he went. and he had these little boys that delivered the paper. He met the journal truck every day and got the little boys going in the right direction. And I had our paper out at one time even. On the street we lived on, I could go all the way to the end and come back all the way there. So I made a little money then. I don't remember ever seeing it, but I had a paper route then.
What about that? So how far did you have to walk to school? If it was on the other side of the county, it could have been a ways.
I would say 2 or 3 miles.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how every place is different, but here in this Martin County, anything within 3 miles of school, they had to walk.
I think it's supposed to be that way now,
But
they
the
don't
OP
do it.
Franklin down here on that bus going down through my other house, that was the last stop. Everybody was down on town. They had to do it on water. We passed them sometimes, pouring down raining.
Oh, pouring down
Poor
rain.
things.
And they were walking, we were riding.
Hmm.
Because the bus was leading to the top of the bus was leading.
Goodness me. So when you got to high school, what was that like? Did you have a
We
good
were in
friend?
Dalton then. That was after Mother and Daddy divorced, and we were living in. Mama was a telephone operator there, and I went believe it or not, all 4 years in one place, school, and it was real good. I had grand teachers. They were all old, but they were real good teachers.
So that was like Dalton High School or something?
Mm-hmm. It was a good school system, and I went.
Did you have any good girlfriends or?
Yes, several girls, but we were not chummy like you all were, like that. Where you went to spend the night, we just were friends mostly during the
school.
daytime. And
So what'd you do after school after you got home?
after I got my lessons, I read. So about all I ever did.
Did you have to help your mom do a lot of chores or not so much?
Yes. Well, I did a lot of the dishwashing and things like that. And she had a victory garden one summer, and I helped her with that.
What's
But
the victory
mostly
garden? What's the victory garden?
Everybody planted a victory garden then during the war.
During the war.
Mhm. That was the extent of my going to war, was the victory garden. But it was fun. Mama had her green beans and squash. I can't wait to eat my squash and all those things.
Was the purpose of that just to
Show you were
patriotic? I guess?
patriotic. That's it. Mhm.
And so it was it just to take the place of having to go to the store and buy those so that store food could be sent overseas or wherever to the boys? So,
Well, see, a lot of people had left the gardens to go to war, so they had to.
They're short of food, I guess.
Yeah,
And you couldn't find nothing at the store.
and couldn't find it at the store.
that's right.
Well, that's where I was going with those coupons or tickets or whatever for flour and sugar and all these things. You just had a certain number. I think they maybe gave it to you once a month or every couple of months, and you
Ration.
vouchers or rations.
Ration,
Yeah,
that's what. Yeah, you had ration books.
ration books. Yeah.
Coffee ration, sugar ration,
Oils of all kinds.
gasoline ration. Yeah, all kind of ration. You had all kind of book. You had to get on a piece out of that book, stamp.
Because the places where these things were made and processed and everything
Shoot,
went into
right.
war
Production.
material, war production. Yeah.
So when did so you never got your driver's license at all when you were growing up?
No, after we married. Well, no, before we married, he taught me how to drive, and so did I get my driver's license before or
I
after?
think that after you married.
After married, but he'd been teaching me all the time.
Weren't you teaching her how to drive in a pasture or something? Seems like I heard you say that a long time
You
ago.
had a little way to pick up. She's done flying.
Yeah. But we were on the road, I think.
But you had to learn to fly then. Now you just let the car go.
Yeah.
You had to shift gears then.
Yeah.
So you had to, it was a lot harder. Wasn't just turning it and pushing a pedal.
But talk about her and her people that stayed with her out here in the apartment. They had one Andrew had a preacher for a boyfriend or studying to be a preacher. And they invited supper that night and invited me and Frank to come supper too. So we went to supper. They ran and sang the blessing. They had it. Boy, I said I'll never forget their name. But as he said the blessing, y'all not never done that. He prayed, I bet you 30, 40 minutes.
Oh, gracious.
The food was
It was
cold.
getting cold all that time.
Frank was kicking me, I was kicking Frank.
But don't do that. Somebody was kicking me.
Mama remembers that. Somebody's kicking me too.
Oh, gracious.
Oh,
he was
goodness.
practicing.
That boy thought they would they through praying.
Bless the food.
Oh goodness.
my
Oh, it was
goodness.
good and blessed by the time you got around to eating it, right?
Might
And
have been
cold.
worried it wasn't.
Blessed cold.
Oh, goodness. Oh.
Goodness me, that's funny.
But
So
those were some good days out there in that teacherage. Sure enough, I had never lived anything but with family, and we all lived together. And well, I did it with.
it's probably a lot like going to college and staying in the dorm. It's like it's
And we
kind
took
of like
turns cooking and shopping and all of those things.
Now, was this like I know you called it an apartment, but was it like a house that had just everybody rented rooms from it and you shared the kitchen and all, or
No,
did
it
your
was
apartment
divided
have?
into
Tell you what the
4.
house was, they had a little ill out there. They had all the Hoyt Major was saying.
Oh.
And it was in a dormitory like thing. You know, y'all up there, y'all had 2 or 3 bedrooms,
Yeah, 3.
and then you had a living room and kitchen, 5 rooms.
And then there'd be a wall, and then somebody else had 5 rooms or more.
Okay, so you all had your own kitchen.
They had it. The place Mr. Butcher lived upstairs and downstairs.
Oh, let's see.
He lived downstairs.
Upstairs.
Upstairs. Mr. Farfer lived downstairs. And y'all and Rabbit.
Rabbit Smith, he was the coach.
Well, how did y'all end up there? Was this when there was another teacher or woman that lived there, and did she get another job, or was that at a different place? That may have been in Athens over about where the Navy school is, that Margaret was saying she got to stay there because the woman had gone to get her doctorate or something.
Yes, and and Margaret took the apartment for the summer, and she needed a roommate, somebody to half the expenses, so we.
But that was in Athens? Okay.
Yeah, next to, what's that church Major goes to?
Prince Avenue?
Prince Avenue. It was right there, next to Prince Avenue Church.
Oh, so I don't know why I thought that was the Navy school. Where the
No,
Navy
the
school
Navy's
is.
further up
Yes.
near that hospital.
Okay.
Yeah. No, this was down next to Prince Avenue Baptist Church.
So did this apartment then that she took in Madison just come with the job, with the position?
Yes, this down here, and they wanted the football coach and the principal and the county school superintendent to be around close to the school, and so they were willing.
Were they
and
married?
times were not.
Were they married?
Oh, and had families.
Oh.
Bobby Crawford. I don't know whether you know Bobby down at the drugstore.
Right now,
He was about 3rd grade.
Dog Huff lived right behind y'all
Yeah.
too.
And she worked in